You've got some white space on the bottom left on page 10. I want you to write down two phrases, one on top of the other. Leave a little room to the right. The first phrase is ill meaning. Ill meaning. You mean ill to someone. Ill meaning. And then the second phrase under that is well meaning. You wish well for someone. Now, to the right, and these don't match those two, I want you to write down two words, one on top of the other. Incorrect and correct. So here's the point. It is possible that you mean harm or ill to others. That's possible. It is possible that you mean good towards others, that you are a person with goodwill. It is possible to mean ill and be incorrect. It is possible to mean ill and be correct. It is possible to be well-meaning and still be incorrect. And so I'm going to just go ahead and tell you now the point of this book. You are all ignorant, incorrect people. You are, and I am. And that is the reality about our level of knowledge. The book is Factfulness. 10 reasons we're wrong about the world and why things are better than you think. It is written by Hans Rosling, and he is helped by Anna Rosling-Ronlund and Ola Rosling. I think that's his son and daughter-in-law. And he died, Hans did, before the book was finished, and they finished it for him. And go ahead and make a note somewhere. You want to watch especially the best, but he's got more than one, but especially the best TED Talk by Hans Rosling. It is remarkable. He is a medical doctor and researcher, but his mainly daughter-in-law, I think is the key element in this, figured out a way to show data in a way that is breathtaking and different. And so, basically, we're wrong about stuff. We're wrong about the big stuff. And one of the things that I am coming to believe, I'm now going to give you a bias of mine, is that too many people are ignorant about our racial history. That's my bias. And so my wife and I last year went to Atlanta, Birmingham, Selma, and Montgomery and went to the spots where the dogs were loose or held by a leash and the fire hoses were turned and the march across Selma. I've got a picture of me walking across the bridge. And then all that happened in Montgomery with Rosa Parks. And 2 days ago we got back from our trip this year. And I will never forget the museum, the photos, walking the halls of Little Rock Central High School, where in 1957 a mob of white parents and students spat upon and screamed at the Little Rock Nine, who walked in protected by the Army from Dwight Eisenhower. I think we're ignorant about a lot of things. And this book says we're really ignorant. So, 10 reasons we're wrong about the world. We're on the same page. Look at the top left. We systematically get the answers wrong about what is wrong, about the nature of the challenges we face. We need to acknowledge and tackle our ignorance. We need factfulness. Bill Gates put out a newsletter just a few weeks ago, and he said, here are the 5 books you need to read this summer. And he did another letter saying, here are the 2 most important books I've read in a long time. One of them is by Steven Pinker. I think I'll do that later this year. And the other one is Factfulness. So this is an important book. On the right, the authors, researchers, collaborators, a doctor, a sword swallower. And Google Hans Rosling sword swallowing, and you'll see him swallow a sword. And it's really fun. And he loves the circus. And he says, by the way, I'm a Nobel Prize winner. And then he smiles and he says, in 1985, the Nobel Peace Prize Committee decided that nuclear disarmament was the most important peace cause in the world. They awarded the prize to me. Well, not to me directly, but to IPPNW, the International Positions for the Prevention of Nuclear War, and I was a proud member of that organization. Here's what I think. Hans Rosling cared about one thing. People's lives. Literally their lives. Keeping them alive. Extending their life expectancy. Everything else is all about how to get there. Thus, money, education, peace instead of war matter in order to keep more people alive longer. Keeping the most people alive is what matters most. And so the ultimate goal, he says, is for people to have the freedom to do what they want, for us to have the freedom to do what we want, and if we're not alive, we don't have that freedom. So let's start here. We're an ignorant people, slow to change, and unwilling to admit our own ignorance. Now, let me go ahead and settle kind of one of the thought processes. We think something is true based on learning it at a young age and never keeping up. Let me say that again. If we learn something in college, we assume that that's true for the rest of our lives. And that's a mistake. And so, when presented with new evidence, we must always be ready to question our previous assumptions and reevaluate and admit that we were wrong. Warning. Expertise does not translate. He has this test. I'm going to read you some of the questions in a minute. And he says, Nobel Prize winners, college professors who have narrow expertise are wrong about everything else at the same percentage as the rest of the world. Really interesting. So, some stories. He says, can you imagine, and he talks about his grandmother. His mother finally got a washing machine. And his grandmother sat and watched it wash a load of clothes from start to finish. And he says, do you have any idea how the world changed with a washing machine? He said, now a woman, and it was usually a woman, could put clothes in the washing machine and take the children to the library and read books and learn things and start progressing. But before that, women, again, usually women, had to wash with a rub board or down at the river. That the washing machine extended the human lives. The good news about so many girls in school, here you go. The average male across the planet by the age of 30 has had 10 years of school. The average female, 9 years. It's better than we thought. That's one of the things he says. Mostly everything is better than we thought. There's a story about a village with an angry mob. This was a village he faced. And there were these men with machetes. And he was there to take their blood and find out what was making them all sick. And these men with machetes stood there and was ready to kill him, Dr. Russell, because they thought he was stealing their blood. And a brave village woman stood up in front of the men and said, do you remember a couple of years ago when this disease hit and people got sick and people died? This man is trying to keep that from happening. And this one woman stood up to these machete-wielding men and they backed off. And he got the blood and he figured out what was wrong. The pharmaceutical company that makes money, even though it charges less than the cost of the raw materials it purchases for the drug it sells. This is fascinating. You want a business story? Here it is. He says that there is a pharmaceutical company that actually charges less than the raw materials. They had technology breakthrough. They built robotic automation ways to turn it into the medicine. They get paid before they have to pay for the raw materials, and the interest gives them their profit. Fascinating. Fascinating. And he says we've got to have a lot of attention to technological breakthrough. Why do you see pictures in third world places of a house that has a first floor and a partially built second floor? Because when they get enough money to buy a brick, they don't want somebody to steal the brick. They put it on the house and they build it one brick at a time. That's how they keep their bricks. Fascinating. What every disaster and problem could learn from international airplane crashes, simple idea, you've got to share the data. All encompassing shared data on all airplane crashes has greatly reduced the number of crashes. But we don't do that with illness, with disease. We don't do that with many other problems. It is a mistake to not compile and share data. We can talk about many areas where this is true. Question, who has the most children? Okay, get ready for another question. Do Catholics or Muslims or Protestants or atheists have the most children or the fewest children? None of the above. Has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with their economics. Catholics believe officially that it is wrong to practice artificial birth control. The educated Catholics practice it at the same level as non-Catholics. So fascinating. All right, a thought about DDT. Maybe we shouldn't have gotten rid of it completely. It's the best thing to kill mosquitoes when malaria could be an outbreak. The death of babies before their first birthday. 1950, 15 out of 100. 2017, 3 out of 100. Now, the problem is we don't get the good news. There are no newspaper headlines that say, quote, malaria continues to gradually decline. Meteorologists correctly predicted yesterday that there would be mild weather in London today. All right, turn to page 11. Here are the 13 questions. I'm not going to give you all the answers, but this will give you a feel. Number one, in all low-income countries across the world today, how many girls finish primary school? It's more than you think. Where does the majority of the world population live? Well, it's more spread out than you think. In the last 20 years, the proportion of the world population living in extreme poverty has stayed the same, gone up, been reduced. It's reduced by double. It's phenomenal. What is the life expectancy of the world today? It's now over 70. And it was half that not too terribly long ago. There are 2 billion children in the world today, ages 0 to 15. How many children will there be in the year 2100 according to the UN? 2 billion. The population will grow, but adults are living longer. So you can keep going. Now, if you look at the graphic on the page, he divides the world into 4 levels. Level 1, $1 a day. And these are the 7 billion people, and there are now about 1 billion at $1 a day. Level 2, you've quadrupled your income, and now you earn $4 a day. Level 3, wow, you did it. You worked multiple jobs, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and managed to quadruple your income again to $16 a day. And level 4, you have more than $64 a day. All right. You want to look at these graphics on your own, but go to the bottom of the page and think about this question. Where are your and the potential customers? And the answer is, every time somebody moves from level 3 to level 4, if you think back to what the world was like, there came a time when electricity arrived, and then everybody wanted radios and refrigerators and washing machines and televisions, and the economy boomed. And so he basically says every new level 4 customer becomes an economic boom. He's high on Africa. All right, page 12. The 5 great global risks we should worry about. The 5 that concern me most are the risks of global pandemic, financial collapse, world war, climate change, and extreme poverty. Why is it these problems that cause me most concern? Because they are quite likely to happen. If we fail here, nothing else will work. These are mega killers that we must avoid, if at all possible, by acting collaboratively and step by step. There is a 6th candidate for this list. It is the unknown risk. So let me pause a minute and talk about this. He says, the more data we can get, the more we know about pandemics. He said, do you realize that nobody, not in any overwhelming way, grasped the financial collapse? He said, we haven't learned how to put together the data yet. All right, turn to page 2. We're going to do a few quick things. Why is this book worth our time? We are wrong about so much, and that makes us take bad stances and make bad decisions. This book will help us learn about our ignorance. Number 2, things really are getting much better, much better. This book will help us grasp that. And number 3, why is this book worth our time? Bill Gates told us to read it. So, now, I would encourage you to read the quotes you can in bold and in larger font. Let me just read a couple. Page 3, number 12. Step by step, year by year, the world is improving. Not on every single measure, every single year, but as a rule, and though the world faces huge challenges, we have made tremendous progress. This is the fact-based world view. All right, look to page 5. Now, look at page 4. This is the kind of thing he does with his data, especially look at the TED Talk. But look at number 35. This is really insightful. The Sweden I was born into, Rosling says, in 1948, was where Egypt is on the health wealth map today. So what you have to do is you have to see the progression of countries. All right? Turn to page 5, number 47. Women and men get educated and started to want better educated and better fed children. And having fewer of them was the obvious solution. Turn to page 7, number 70. Put a star beside number 70. By 2040, 60% of level 4 consumers will live outside of the West. Now let me give you an example of one of the things he says in the book, and then we'll go to the lessons and takeaways. He says, as a doctor, I go and I treat people in poor areas where I treat the people in the few hospital beds that are there, and I try to help them survive. But he said, you realize that putting money not in the hospital, but in education and in other parts of the village would actually keep more people alive. The question is, what do we do to get the most people to rise up the ladder and stay alive longer? That's the message of this book. Page 12, 5 lessons and takeaways. Number 1, accept that you are ignorant. Really, you are ignorant. And so am I. So cultivate humility. When I hear somebody say that racism is gone, I just would encourage them to go to Little Rock and walk the halls of the Central Little Rock High School and listen to the language that was used in 1957 and then look for the same language on Twitter, it's still there. We are ignorant, and I'm ignorant about so many things. Number two, learn to embrace the right amounts of data. Watch that TED Talk, and you'll be amazed at what he teaches us about how to view data. Number three, travel more. And when you travel, mingle more with the locals when you travel. Number four, prevention of disease through increasing income, which includes better education, matters much, much more than individual treatment of individual sufferers. And number five, we probably are really just getting started on data collection. The more data, the more lives will be saved and prolonged. Factfulness, 10 reasons we're wrong about the world and why things are better than you think. I hope you found this useful. Thank you very much.